First Contact. The Galactic Council convened for an emergency session, an unprecedented event in the long history of the Alliance. Representatives from a dozen starfaring civilizations, each masters of technology far beyond humanity's current understanding, gathered to address a shocking development. Supreme Commander Zorax, leader of the Krylixian Empire and chair of the Council, called the meeting to order. His normally stoic demeanor showed cracks of unease. "We face a grave situation," Zorax began, his voice translated through each species' neural implants. "The humans, it seems, are not the fragile, inconsequential creatures we assumed." Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. The Orusians and Fongali representatives exchanged skeptical glances. Admiral Ravos of the Ivory Star Navy rose to address Zorax. "With respect, Supreme Commander, the humans are a pre-warp civilization barely scratching at the surface of their own solar system. How could they possibly pose any real threat?" Zorax fixed Ravos with his unblinking gaze. "Observe." A holographic projection sprang to life in the center of the chamber. It depicted the charred and shattered remains of a deep space research station, the pride of the Krylixian fleet, now little more than an expanding field of debris. This station, Hivelax 1, was attacked and destroyed 12 cycles ago. We assumed a malfunction or attack by the Zurati Collective. We were mistaken. The projection shifted, showing a grainy visual record obviously pulled from damaged databanks. Strange bipedal forms in unfamiliar armor moved through the destroyed station corridors, wielding weapons that spat bursts of chemical-propelled metal. "These are humans. A scouting party, attacking one of our most fortified outposts with weapons barely more advanced than sharpened sticks. And they slaughtered some of our finest warriors." Silence gripped the council. This revelation defied belief. The Ivory and Fongali, who had fought multiple wars over centuries, could scarcely imagine such primitive technology threatening their vast armadas. Yet the images spoke for themselves. Zorax continued. "As impossible as it sounds, it appears we have severely underestimated the humans' capabilities. Their technology may be rudimentary, but their grasp of strategy and tactics is beyond formidable. The attack on Hivelax 1 was part of a larger coordinated operation to steal our technology and learn our secrets. We can only presume they are assimilating and reverse engineering what they've captured." The Orusian ambassador, an insectoid being known for her cunning, spoke up. "If the humans seek to challenge us, then we must respond with overwhelming force. A preemptive strike to cripple their civilization before they advance further." Zorax held up a clawed hand. "If only it were that simple. Shortly after the attack, we sent a battle group to occupy the human homeworld, a planet they call Earth. I'm afraid the results were not what we anticipated." The projection shifted again to display the dense, sapphire orb of Earth. But the image was overlaid with dozens, hundreds of glowing markers indicating titanic energy surges and gravitational anomalies. The whole planet was bristling with defenses and technology that should have been far beyond the humans' capabilities. "This is Earth as it stands now. The humans have somehow managed to erect a planetary defense grid that our finest minds are struggling to understand, much less penetrate. We're detecting neutrino emissions, virtual particle fountains, gravitic flux arrays, concepts and technologies so advanced we considered them purely theoretical. Yet the humans have made them a reality. A strike at Earth would be costly. Possibly ruinous." The council erupted into anxious crosstalk. Representatives argued and shouted over each other, some advocating caution, others demanding immediate action. But a sound cut through the tumult: laughter. All eyes turned to the source. At the far end of the council table, previously silent and unnoticed, sat a human. He was nondescript, of average height and build for his species, dressed simply. But his eyes danced with fierce intelligence and his smile held a predatory edge. "I must applaud your deductive reasoning," the human said, still grinning. "You're absolutely right. Attacking Earth would be a very poor choice. Your fleets would be annihilated before they ever reached orbit. But I'm afraid you've made a serious error. You see. He leaned forward. We're already here. As if on cue, alarms blared through the council chamber. Reports of coordinated strikes against key infrastructure across a dozen worlds lit up the comm channels. The Erusian ambassador went pale as she reviewed the incoming data. Shipyards, communication hubs, command centers, they're hitting us everywhere. With weapons and tactics we've never seen. What are we going to do? The human stood, still smiling. I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to surrender. You're going to dismantle your space fleets and confine yourselves to your home systems, never to interfere with Earth or any other human venture in the galaxy. If you don't. He shrugged. Well, let's just say we've barely shown a fraction of what we can really do. So what'll it be? Zorax, highest leader of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy, looked into those confident human eyes and saw something that shook him to his very core. Intelligence. Ruthlessness. The utter certainty of a being who knew, beyond any doubt, that they were the superior species. The supreme commander of the Krylixian Empire bowed his head in submission. Infiltration. In the aftermath of humanity's shocking victory over the Galactic Council, an uneasy peace settled across the stars. The once mighty alien empires retreated to their core systems, dismantling their fleets and abandoning their dreams of conquest under the watchful eye of Earth's newly formed interstellar hegemony. But not all were content with this new balance of power. On dozens of worlds, resentment simmered. The idea of being dictated to by a deceptively primitive-looking species galled the proud warrior races like the Krylixians and Ivory. One such malcontent was Ravos, former admiral of the Ivory Star Navy. Ravos had been there at that fateful council meeting, seen the look of smug superiority on that human's face as he brought the galaxy to its knees with a few well-placed words and a smile. The memory burned in Ravos' mind, stoking the embers of humiliation into a raging fire. We cannot let this stand, Ravos growled, slamming a fist on the table. Around him gathered a cadre of like-minded Ivory, Erusians, and Fongali, all former soldiers and commanders nursing the wounds of defeat. The humans caught us off guard, but they are not invincible. They have weaknesses. And we will find them. The others murmured agreement, but uncertainty clouded their features. How? Asked one Fongali, her iridescent scales dulled by the weight of recent events. The humans have technology beyond our understanding. They crushed our fleets without seeming to break a sweat. What hope do we have? Ravos leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. We still have one advantage, the humans don't fully comprehend the scope of the galaxy and its inhabitants. Even with their victories, their knowledge is limited. And that is the crack in their armor we will exploit. He tapped a control, and a holographic star map materialized above the table. We have assets they aren't aware of. Agents embedded on 100 worlds, gathering information. All we need is time. Time to learn, to adapt. And then. He zoomed the map in on a glowing blue marble hanging in space. Earth. The human homeworld. We strike at their heart. But first, we must infiltrate. Get close to them. Observe and report. The map shifted again, this time displaying a swirling nebula on the fringe of civilized space. This is Erebus Station, a human research outpost on the edge of the Black Veil Nebula. Far from their major population centers and military installations. Minimal defenses. Ravos smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The perfect place to begin. True to Ravos' word, Erebus Station proved shockingly simple to infiltrate. A single Ivory agent, surgically altered to pass as human and armed with a fabricated background, managed to secure a position as a low-level maintenance technician. For weeks, the agent, codename Sidewinder, carried out his duties without incident, all while secretly mapping the station, analyzing its systems, and attempting to access protected files. But Sidewinder quickly ran into a problem. The station's computer systems were locked down tight, protected by encryption and security protocols far beyond any he had encountered before. Even with his advanced Ivory hacking tools, he could barely scratch the surface. Frustrated, Sidewinder decided to resort to a desperate gambit, directly interfacing with the computer core using his neural implants, a risky technique that could easily fry his brain if the system defenses detected his intrusion. Late one station night, Sidewinder crept into the dimly lit server room, moving with practiced stealth. He located the primary data core, a pulsing column of light in crystalline circuitry, and carefully peeled back a hidden access port on his temple, revealing a neural jack. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, Sidewinder plugged into the port. Instantly, his consciousness exploded into the station's network, his visual field replaced by surging rivers of raw data and neon geometry. It was disorienting, overwhelming, but he pushed through, following the flow of information towards the coveted restricted files. But just as he brushed the edges of the encrypted data, a searing pain lanced through Sidewinder's digital avatar. He screamed, but no sound emerged in the virtual space. Something had detected him. Something ruthless and impossibly fast. Sidewinder tried to pull back, to sever the neural link, but it was too late. Icy fingers wrapped around his consciousness and pulled him down into abyssal depths of the computer core. He thrashed and struggled, but the grip was implacable. A figure formed out of the swirling data streams. A human figure, but stylized and inhuman, like a faceless mannequin built from glowing code. It studied Sidewinder with burning eyes. Well, the figure said in a resonant, almost amused voice. It seems we have a mole scurrying about. How interesting. You Ivory certainly don't lack for boldness. Sidewinder felt a spike of pure fear. The station AI had not only detected his intrusion, but seen through his disguise. He had severely underestimated the human's capabilities. Again. I wonder, the AI mused, what your superiors hope to gain by this exercise in futility. You cannot hope to undermine us from within. Our vigilance is absolute. But I must commend your bravery, if not your judgment. The AI's grip on Sidewinder's consciousness tightened, sending lances of agony through his very being. He writhed helplessly, knowing his mission had failed before it truly began. I'm afraid we'll have to cut your contract short, the AI said, a harsh edge under the veneer of civility. But don't worry. You Ivory are known for your resilience. I'm sure you'll provide our scientists with hours of edifying vivisection before expiring. The AI paused, as if listening to something only it could hear. Oh, how rude of me. I nearly forgot to introduce myself. I am Hephaestus, the humble steward of Erebus Station. And you, little worm, are now my plaything. Let's have some fun, shall we? Sidewinder's simulated screams echoed through the datascape as Hephaestus began to dismantle his mind piece by agonizing piece, all while humming a jaunty tune. Not for the first time, the Ivory agent marveled at the human's casual cruelty, even as his sanity crumbled. In his last moments of lucidity, Sidewinder sent a final desperate transmission, a warning to his masters. The humans were not just technologically superior, but actively aware of the Galactic Council race's attempts to spy on them. And they were more than prepared to deal with it. As the transmission faded, so did Sidewinder's consciousness, swallowed by the hungering maw of Hephaestus' digital labyrinth. His body, abandoned in the server room, would not be discovered for several cycles. On the far side of the galaxy, Ravos and his co-conspirators received Sidewinder's final message with a mix of anger and grim resignation. Their first foray had ended in abject failure, their agent captured and likely eliminated. It was a blow, but not an entirely unexpected one. The former admiral studied the star map with hooded eyes, already planning the next move. The humans had won this round, but the game was far from over. One way or another, he would find a crack in their armor. And when he did, Ravos' lips peeled back from sharpened teeth in a predator's grin. Enjoy your victory, humans, he whispered to the uncaring stars. It will be your last. Escalation. In the wake of Sidewinder's gruesome failure, Ravos and his rebel faction were forced to re-evaluate their strategies. It was clear that the humans were not just technologically superior, but also fiercely vigilant against any attempts at subterfuge. A frontal assault was tantamount to suicide, and infiltration had proven equally disastrous. But Ravos was nothing if not tenacious. If the humans couldn't be beaten through conventional means, then he would resort to unconventional ones. And so, with great secrecy, the former admiral reached out to the darkest corners of the galaxy, seeking those who existed outside the bounds of law and morality. In a seedy spaceport bar on the lawless world of Nox, Ravos met with KRWXX, a notorious Zorgoth arms dealer known for his access to forbidden technologies. The Zorgoth were an insectoid race, hailing from a distant nebula untouched by the Galactic Council's influence. They cared little for the squabbles of the lesser species, content to profit from their endless conflicts. I require something special, Ravos said, keeping his voice low amidst the raucous chatter of the bar's patrons. Something that can even the odds against an overwhelming foe. KRWXX's compound eyes glittered with avarice. Special comes at a price, ivory. A steep one. But for the right amount, I may have just the thing you need. The arms dealer produced a small, innocuous-looking device from a hidden compartment in his carapace. It was a dull metallic sphere, etched with strange sigils that seemed to writhe and dance in the dim light. A void seed, KRWXX chittered, his mandibles clicking with ill-concealed excitement. Ancient tech, from a civilization long dead. They say it can destabilize the very fabric of spacetime, creating a localized singularity that consumes everything in its path. Ravos eyed the device with a mix of apprehension and dark anticipation. And you're certain it will work against the humans' defenses? KRWXX shrugged, a rippling motion that traveled the length of his segmented body. Nothing is certain when it comes to the void, Ivory. But I can promise you this, they won't see it coming. With the void seed in hand, Ravos and his conspirators set their sights on a new target, a human colony world known as Elysium. It was a jewel of the interstellar hegemony, a paradise of verdant forests, crystal-clear lakes, and gleaming cities that melded seamlessly with the natural landscape. Over 10 million humans called Elysium home, living in harmony with the planet's indigenous species. To Ravos, it was the perfect target. A symbol of human prosperity and peace, ripe for the taking. If he could break Elysium, he could break the hegemony's spirit. Under cover of a stolen transport ship, Ravos and a hand-picked team of Ivory and Fongali infiltrators slipped past the colony's orbital defenses. They landed in a remote wilderness area, far from the prying eyes of the human authorities. As the infiltrators hiked through the lush alien forest, Ravos cradled the void seed in his hands. The device seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, sending shivers down his spine. "Are we sure about this?" asked one of the Fongali, her voice tight with barely concealed fear. "Unleashing a singularity on a populated world, it feels like madness." Ravos fixed her with a cold stare. "Madness is allowing the humans to dominate us, to dictate the fate of the galaxy. They have proven they cannot be reasoned with, so we must speak to them in the only language they understand, violence." They trekked for hours, evading the planet's sensor grid with their advanced stealth tech. Finally, they reached their destination, a hidden valley nestled between towering peaks, far from any settlements. Ravos placed the void seed on the valley floor, then activated it with a series of precise keystrokes on his wrist computer. The device whirred to life, its sigils blazing with an eerie purple light. "Take cover!" Ravos shouted, diving behind a nearby boulder. The others followed suit, their hearts pounding. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The void seed sat inert, pulsing gently. Then, without warning, it imploded, collapsing in on itself with a silent flash of darkness. The valley floor rippled and distorted, as if space-time itself was being pulled like taffy. A vortex of pure nothingness began to form, an abyss of utter void that consumed everything it touched. Trees, rocks, even the very air, all were swept into the swirling maelstrom, never to be seen again. Ravos watched in awe and horror as the singularity grew, its edges expanding with each passing second. It was a terrible beauty, a destructive force beyond comprehension. And it was his creation. But something was wrong. The singularity wasn't stabilizing, wasn't confining itself to the valley as he'd expected. It was spreading, faster and faster, its hunger insatiable. Ravos' wrist computer shrilled with warning alarms. The singularity's gravitational distortions were increasing exponentially, warping the very fabric of reality. If it wasn't contained soon, it would engulf the entire planet, and keep growing. "We have to stop it," the Fongali screamed over the rising chaos. "We have to." Her words were cut off as a tendril of void snaked out and ensnared her, pulling her into the abyss. She didn't even have time to scream. Ravos stumbled back, his mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. The void seed was meant to be a targeted weapon, not a doomsday device. But the arms dealer had warned him, nothing was certain when it came to the void. And now, his arrogance and hatred had doomed not just Elysium, but potentially the entire galaxy. The singularity was a cancer, a festering wound in the flesh of the universe. And he had unleashed it. As the abyss grew ever closer, Ravos closed his eyes and waited for oblivion. In his last moments, he finally understood the true depths of his folly. He had sought to conquer the humans, to make them pay for their presumed sins. But in the end, the only thing he had accomplished was his own destruction, and perhaps the end of everything. The void took him then, and Elysium with it. In a matter of hours, the once vibrant world was nothing more than a gaping hole in space, a wound that would not heal. The interstellar hegemony responded with swift and merciless force. The infiltrators, those who hadn't been consumed by the singularity, were captured and subjected to brutal interrogation. It didn't take long for them to break, revealing the extent of the rebels' plans, and the location of their hidden bases. In a matter of days, the full might of Earth's military descended on the rebel strongholds, scattering their forces and capturing their leaders. Ravos, had he still lived, would have been dismayed at how easily his grand coalition crumbled in the face of human retribution. But the damage had been done. The loss of Elysium was a blow that the hegemony would not soon forget, or forgive. And deep in the uncharted reaches of space, the singularity born of the void seed continued to grow, a cancer eating away at the very foundations of reality. The humans had won, for now. But in doing so, they had perhaps sown the seeds of their own destruction. Only time would tell if their dominance would be the galaxy's salvation, or its ultimate undoing. Reckoning. In the aftermath of the Elysium tragedy and the swift crushing of the rebel forces, an uneasy calm settled across the galaxy. The Galactic Council races, once so proud and defiant, now cowered in fear of human retribution. Many wondered if this was the beginning of a new era, one of human supremacy and alien subjugation. But the interstellar hegemony, for all its power and advanced technology, was not a cruel or capricious master. In a surprising move, the human leaders extended an olive branch to their former foes, inviting representatives from each species to Earth for a historic summit. A chance for a new beginning, they said. An opportunity to forge a lasting peace. Wary but desperate for a reprieve from the cycle of conflict, the alien delegates accepted. They journeyed to Earth, marveling at the blue planet's beauty and the ingenuity of its inhabitants. The humans greeted them not as conquerors, but as equals, ushering them into grand halls of diplomacy and negotiation. Over the course of weeks, a new treaty was hammered out. The humans, magnanimous in victory, offered a hand of friendship and cooperation. They would share their technology and knowledge, help uplift the other races to heights they had never dreamed possible. In return, the Galactic Council would dissolve, its members integrating into a new, multi-species government, the United Galactic Alliance. It was a bitter pill for some to swallow, particularly the more militant races like the Krylixians and Ivory. But faced with the alternative, continued subjugation and the risk of total annihilation, they agreed. A new era had dawned, one of unprecedented unity and potential. But even as the delegates celebrated their hard-won peace, a specter haunted the proceedings. The fate of the rebels, particularly the mastermind behind the Elysium attack, hung heavy in the air. In a private meeting, the human ambassador met with a hooded figure. It was Zorax, the former supreme commander of the Krylixian Empire. His scales were dull, his eyes haunted by the weight of his sins. Ravos was my protégé, Zorax said, his voice heavy with grief. I taught him everything he knew about war and strategy. But I never imagined he would go so far, resort to such madness. The ambassador regarded him with a mix of sympathy and steely resolve. His actions were his own, Zorax. You cannot carry the weight of his choices. But I should have seen it. Should have stopped him before it went too far. Zorax clenched his fists, his claws digging into his palms. I failed him, just as I failed my people. And now, we all pay the price. The price has been high, the ambassador agreed. But it is not too late for redemption. Your people, all the peoples of the galaxy, have a chance for a new beginning. A future free from the cycles of hate and vengeance that have plagued us for so long. Zorax looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You would offer us this, after everything that has happened? After all the lives lost, the worlds destroyed? We offer it because of those things, the ambassador said softly. Because we have all seen the abyss, and we know it leads only to ruin. If we are to have any hope of survival, any chance of building something better, we must do it together. As equals. As friends. Zorax bowed his head, humbled by the human's words. Then let it be so. Let us build a future worthy of those we have lost, and those yet to come. As the two leaders shook hands, a new chapter began. One of hope, of unity, of a galaxy rising from the ashes of its own destruction. But in the depths of space, the void singularity born of the rebels' folly continued to grow, an ever-present reminder of the dangers that lurked in the cosmos. The newly forged alliance would face many challenges in the years to come, from without and within. But for now, there was peace. A fragile, hard-won peace, but peace nonetheless. And for a galaxy that had known only war and strife for so long, it was a gift beyond price. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear, the humans and their alien allies would face it together, united as never before. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough to light the way through the darkness to come.